Well done. Acompanha bem Pakowski, entra. And Riga
Welcome to a very special edition of the Latvian Football Podcast, where we are going to look at the RFS's Champions League Qualification Round 1 opponents, Larne FC. There's been a lot of information circulating about Larne FC recently on the internet, on Latvian media, and yet we still don't really have a good grasp of what the club is and what it means to the people that it represents. And to do so today and to find out about Larne, who they really are, joining me is Brian Haveron. Well, you look like an authentic Larne fan. I'll tell you that.
Well, I'm certainly a long-time fan, 50 plus years. Started going to football matches with my father a long time ago now, and I've been part of the club for over half a century now, which sounds long when you say it that way. But it's really exciting times at Larne FC. Really exciting with what's happened in the last few years, and very similar actually to FK RFS, because recently with a new club like that and what has happened there in the recent years is really very similar to what's happened at Larne since Tiernan Lynch took over in 2017. So there's very similarities between the two clubs.
That was my impression as well. The more I learn about Larne, the more similarities I see, with the exception, of course, longevity. Being a supporter of a single club for 50 years is not something that anyone in Latvia can say, simply because of our history, and we don't have any clubs anywhere nearly as old as that. How did you remember what were the early days of going to games with your father and becoming a supporter like? What was it like?
Yeah, it was. I suppose back in the 70s, 1970s, we're going back to. The games were very, depending on how Larne were actually performing in the league at that time, the attendance would have been, either very, very good in relation to maybe 1,500-1,600 supporters. And at the same time, if things weren't going well, there could have been 50-60 supporters. So back in the 70s, we had a couple of really good cup runs. So, a couple of semi-finals and in those days we had replays, and we had two semi-finals that actually went to like a third replay, or a second replay is probably the best way to put it. And those were big gates, exciting times, but we always fell, at the semi-final, we were falling at the last hurdle, so to speak. But at the same time, very joyous. And the rivalry on them days in relation to football, where you had terracing, where people were standing, there was no seats. The banter within the stadiums was really good and exciting. And me as a 9-10-year-old, I thought this was really, really exciting. As I say, the results didn't always go our way, but we got some really good cup runs, which actually helped to gain that momentum. But then I suppose in the 1980s, 84, I think it was, actually, we had a new manager in the name of Paul Malone, and Paul had really good experience within the league and had been very successful with Linfield FC, which you would know or recognize Linfield FC, because I think there was an exciting match a couple of years ago with Linfield FC. But
it's not necessarily something we want to remember, but
yes. It was neither to Linfield.
Yeah, I'm sure.
But Paul Malone brought that experience, and he actually built a squad. From 1984, he got to two Irish Cup finals in '87 and '89. And again, the heartbreak from the point of view of going to that big occasion and absolutely falling at the last hurdle this time. But in '87, we brought silverware to the club in the form of the Ulster Cup, another cup competition. But it would be that was the second senior trophy we won, because we won the Senior Cup back in 1950. Not many people remember that, but in 1987, that was a fantastic night for Larne Football Club. Unfortunately, Paul Malone departed in 1981, and that started a period of decline from the point of view of we started to slip into the second. We went into the second division. We were down again, up again, etc., etc. So there was that instability that there was there with the club, and support really dwindled away. The stadium was starting to look tired, and it was a real rough period. And those people around the club who stayed on through all that period, and I mean the real diehards who stayed through that whole period and made sure that there was a club and that club survived. That's how serious it got. Those people really need to be applauded for the efforts that they put in and standing by the club for so long. Now, whenever things changed dramatically, 2017, our current manager, Tyrone Lynch, and his brother Seamus came on board, and they started to build something, really positive immediately. But at the same time, the final piece of the jigsaw was a gentleman by the name of Kenny Bruce. Kenny Bruce was the investor who came along in 2018 and had a clear vision of what he wanted to do in reference to not only the club, but the community. And what has transpired, we had a 5-year plan that everybody bought into in relation to what needed to happen on the pitch, the academy, the structure, the ground improvements that were made. Everything was part of the solution, not just going out and buying players, but it was everything. It was the infrastructure around that. And what Kenny did in relation to giving his support and giving that direction to what was already there, which was a really good partnership with Tiernan and Seamus, who had academy background, they had past managerial experience, etc. That part was there, but it needed to be sort of nourished, and also an investment was required. And Kenny Bruce brought that in abundance. Since that happened, and the 5-year plan took place, of course, the first thing we had to do was get out of Division 2. That was, I think we had record points for Division 2 to get out of the league and move into the Premiership. Unfortunately, then COVID struck, and that cut the season short. But that year we managed to get to another Irish Cup final. And of course, we went to the Irish Cup final, and as usual, we get beaten in the Irish Cup final. So it was a disappointing cup final because there was restricted attendance, etc. And it wasn't just the same day. But with the onboarding of new players, Jeff Hughes is a Larne local guy, brought him home from England, signed up for Larne. His experience, a wealth of experience in England, along with other signings like Mark Randall, who came in, ex-Arsenal player. Mark came in and brought a whole new level of standard to Irish League football, not just Larne, but Irish League football. Cian Bolger would be another one, English experience, played at high level, Republic of Ireland under-19, under-21 level. And so the structure and the foundations were being built right through the spine of the team, from the point of view of building establishing a style of football that Tiernan really supported, and also building in that foundation from the point of view of expanding to other positions within the team. And some, every squad member at that time were probably winners in relation to winning previous leagues and, having that experience of winning at a high level. So all of that structure was put in place, and we then started to build that team that really was going to go places. And then, after, that, or being founded in 1889 to eventually win the league in 22-23 was just incredible.
Wow.
We thought that was good. And for those people, if you can imagine those people who hung around the club and stayed at the club and supported the club through those difficult times, to be standing at Inver Park in, May 2023 and to win the league was just fairy tale material. And then to come, and then to go and do it, to have the nerve to go and win back-to-back titles is just incredible. It's actually still sort of dreamland for Larne FC, because, to have the history that we have, and the struggling side of it, and then to come through the other side of that with the investment and the building of the structure and the community ethos within the whole town and the club, it is just, it's material that you could make a movie of. It is really, really incredible. And to think that we're now going for, 3 in a row is just, that is fairy tale stuff.
That's fantastic, and that's great to hear. And thank you for this very detailed overview. You've mentioned these difficult times that that lasted just before the Renaissance, when Tyrone Lynch and other people came in. And you said that it was a bit of a struggle to keep the club afloat during those times. And then I'm wondering, why did people do that? Why did they strive to keep the club afloat? What does Larne FC mean to the Larne community? What role does it play?
It's now pretty straightforward that it's the center of the whole town. The community that get together from the point of view of going to matches. There's families get together now for matches and meet at matches. So it's that community gathering point. So on average, we would have a gate now of just under 2,000. And as I say, it's that gathering point for families and communities, and just to, a lot of people will gather early before the match, socialize, from that perspective. Also after the match, get to meet the players. It's a real community feeling from the point of view of everybody coming together. We get a good result, hopefully, and after it, we celebrate with the team. This is something that's strange as well. And in football circles, you wouldn't get much mixture with players actually coming in and saying hello to the fans, etc., etc. This happens every match at Inver Park, the home of Larne. Players will come in after the match. They feel very much of the community. Some of the players who actually now play for Larne are now living in Larne. So that community feeling actually stretches toward, from the players' perspective, and they get included in the whole community atmosphere by actually coming to the town, living in the town. And guys like Mark Randall, for example, who came across from London, he's now part of the community. He lives in the town. I know his parents, who visit him quite regularly, love the whole place. So that's just an example of how that community atmosphere can get you, sucked into the whole bigger picture, which is basically everyone together. And we're in it together. We win together and we lose together. But back to the earlier days, whenever things were struggling, there was a restructuring of the league. Larne didn't happen to make it to that restructure and be in the Premiership. And once a team declines into the second division, then that's where the interest goes slightly, because it's you're not playing the big teams anymore. So that's a real struggle. Now, as I said before, we were promoted, but then went back again because we didn't have the established team. We didn't have the players at that time. We had some good players, absolutely good players, high goal scorers, but at the same time, we just weren't good enough collectively as a team. And those times were tough from the point of view of, when you have poor attendance and also from the point of view of sponsorship wasn't fantastic either. So, but you still have to run a team, you still have to pay players, and the overheads associated with that. So it was a struggle. It was a real struggle. But Kenny Bruce, for example, who is a Larne lad who grew up in Larne, went to school in Larne before he moved to England. He's a businessman. And he moved to where the business was situated, and to grow that business and be very successful at that. But as a Larne supporter back in his younger days, he had actually he had a passion for the town, he had a passion for the team, and from that perspective, it was a simple. I've spoke to Kenny many times on this. It was a simple case of investing in the club and supporting the town, because that's where he was from, that's where he grew up. And it was a no-brainer for Kenny.
Yeah. And you mentioned that a few of the players moved to Larne and now live there. Are there any Larne natives playing for the first team?
Yes. So Jeff Hughes was playing for us until, Jeff's now 39. He's retired through injury, I have to say. We have Matt Lusty, who's playing for. He was loaned out last year to Dungannon and was very successful until he got injured in January. But he's back playing for Larne again. He's a centre forward, and he'd be a typical number 10 type of player who's good on the ball, can turn, deliver, make a pass, but he also can find the back of the net. So he scored in our match against Ballatown there just last weekend. The academy is producing players. We have a really good academy now, where there's players coming through from the town, but also the local area. So Jack Hastings is another local guy who's just signed full-time contract with Larne, and also from the point of view of players who've come through the academy, which we now consider to be local because they've been schooled and they've come through that structure. We have another 3 of them added to for the squad for this year. So there's a really good, and I think that's important that you have that local element to your team, because they can they're part of the community. They actually see how the community is going. They feel a big part of it. I think that engagement with the local players is really critical, and that's the really smart thing that was done at a very early stage from the point of view of establishing that academy. And the training facilities that we have in Larne now are best in Northern Ireland. But also with Tiernan and Seamus being part of academies in the past, they knew the structures, they knew what was required. So that's why a real win-win situation for both, for Tiernan's perspective and the club's perspective, but also us as supporters seeing the benefits of that is fantastic.
That's fantastic, especially given that Larne is a town that, for us it would be a city, barely 20,000 in population. That's remarkable that not only do you have a club that is as large, but you even can play local players at that level. That's very, very impressive, I think. And you mentioned the Larne community as an important part of the relationship with Larne FC. How would you describe Larne's community? What is it? What does it mean?
Well, I suppose Larne's community over the last 25, 30 years maybe, it's a hard working town. There's a lot of business in the town, but in the last 20, 30 years, there's a lot of big businesses, like Caterpillar, for example. Before that was known as the factory was actually GEC. Larne Harbour was a really thriving port. But over that period, there was a lot of business shifted. So Caterpillar, for example, isn't as big as what it used to be. Far from it. The port of Larne, some of the vessels moved from Larne to Belfast to travel across to Scotland and mainland England. So from that perspective, a lot of business has moved on. So the local community have had to, in some cases, diversify, get retrained, go to different jobs, etc. So that there is a resilience within the town from the point of view of actually progressing. Now, the best thing that ever happened, because that's all going on, and then you have our football club really, turning a leaf from the point of view of that centre focal point for the community. So just think what that now means from the point of view of the pride that Larne FC give the local community. We can hold our heads high up. We can talk about, we're always, being considered, in football circles from the point of view of the underdog or also Rans, etc. Well, we now have a seat at the top table, and we're there to stay. And that was always the vision that Kenny Bruce, Tiernan Lynch, all the other hard workers. Gareth Clements, our chairman, is an absolute star. You look at the way they talk in relation to having a seat at the table, and that has absolutely came to fruition. And we're there to stay. And we have actually, from a Larne FC perspective, and what has happened, we have shaped, the NIFL, Northern Ireland Football League. We have shaped it for the better. We have more clubs now coming on full time. There's better investment. Sponsorship that's progressing. The infrastructure. We now have money approved through the government for investment in our stadiums. So, this is all really good stuff. And I think Larne have played a really important role behind the scenes with some of those people I've mentioned. They have really made a difference from not only Larne, which is fantastic, but also the whole Premiership.
Yeah, it sounds like both the town and the club are modernizing, and I've heard that the Northern Irish Football League, while still semi-professional, Larne is a professional outfit, and it's similar to the Veersliga, that many of our, especially second half of table clubs, are semi-pro, but then we have a number of fully professional clubs as well, RFS being one of them. I'm very curious because it's just so many similarities that I see, and parallels between us and you, both on a league level and on a club level. When the investments with Kenny Bruce started coming in to revitalize and renaissance the club, because he's local, you'd say there were no suspicions about what that might do to a club.
Yeah, there was no suspicions from the real diehards, from the point of view of, everybody wanted to go in the same direction. But there's always those people that will be skeptical from the point of view of, why is someone investing in Larne FC, for example, right? And doubting the fact, well, what was the money going to be used for? And one of the first things we had to do was buy the ground, Ember Park, because it was actually the council owned the ground. So in that regard, there was questions asked about, well, why would someone want to buy the ground? Are they going to sell it on? Are they going to build houses, etc., etc.? So that was that doubt that you referred to. But Kenny very quickly set up a trust fund from the point of view of the money that was invested is protected. The ground itself, Ember Park, is protected. So all of those things that were done really alleviate the fears and the suspicions that you would say that people may have. But the good thing about over the last few years in respect to, the proof is in pudding, and what has been delivered with the academy in the town, with the groundworks and the redevelopment of Ember Park, has absolutely been fantastic for everyone to see. But then when you back that up with having a team that are winners, that takes away all that fear factor and the fact that, yes, suspicions could have been there, but at the end of the day, the proof's in the pudding, and what has happened is absolutely incredible. So that takes that suspicion away, and it has really been proved out that Kenny and everybody else and what they had in relation to the vision was achieved, and more of the same, please.
I think the trust fund is a very valuable lesson, because we've lost more than a few clubs to shady investments and people buying up clubs and then selling off their assets and completely not caring about impact that has on communities or the fans. And yet we've never seen anything like trust funds established here. So this is certainly, I think, is a lesson to be learned. Well, Brian, it's fantastic to learn more about Larne, but of course, looking back is significant and important, but we also have the future to look forward to, which is, at least for a brief period of time, a common future between you and us. And you are coming to Riga for the first leg of the Champions League qualifiers on the 10th of July. What do you expect of both the trip and the game?
The trip, I think the culture from the point of view of going to Riga, really excited, because I've heard from Northern Ireland supporters who travelled for the Northern Ireland Latvia match. I've been taking some information on board, where to stay, where to go, etc., etc. But the friendly, there was a striking message there from the point of view of how friendly the people are, and we like to think the people in Northern Ireland are pretty welcoming and friendly as well. So there is that connection there. Is Riga somewhere I would have thought of going if there wasn't a match being played? Probably not. But the fact of the matter is, it's the same distance away. Like I would travel to Spain quite often. It's the same distance, So the fact that it's going to be a different culture, new experience. the football side of things is going to be interesting from, supporters, how they, how I was in Gibraltar whenever we travelled to play St. Joseph's. But I think this is a different experience because, you would have typically 15, 1,600, supporters at a match. St. Joseph's and Gibraltar wouldn't have had, something like that. The atmosphere, although the weather was very nice, the atmosphere wasn't maybe just as good as it could have been. So I'm looking forward to, experiencing that and just the culture of the town and the city, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. It's really about new experiences and really looking forward to that. And of course, winning the game is the ultimate experience. If we can get something out of the match as well, then that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely. And what do you think we can expect from the Larne away fans? We're very excited to welcome you all, but
there will be a lot of noise, I can tell you that.
That's good. We like that.
There's approximately about 100 travelling by different ways, different methods, etc. Some people are going through Stockholm. Myself, I'm going directly from Dublin, which is one of the big, this hopping from place, it suits some people. I just like getting on a plane and going to where I'm going to. So the fact that we had direct flights from Dublin to Riga was really convenient. But different people, some people are going through Amsterdam, so there are different methods. But we're all meeting up. We're all meeting up for the match. There's already been, connections there from the point of view of who's going, where are they going. But we're all going to be there, at the right time to watch the match. And we will be noisy, we'll be loud, we'll be proud, and we'll be cheering on the team.
And do you think you have Bodo Glimt to look forward to in qualification round 2?
I would say, based on what I've seen, what I know Larne can do, it depends how they can express themselves from the point of view of retention going forward. I think we have experiences from last year that we need to learn from, and I like what is happening with, we're playing more games. That was the big issue last year, that we hadn't played many games. Yet Helsinki had been well into their season, just like you are at this moment in time. So we're playing more games in order to get more game time. Just tonight, for example, we're playing in the Charity Shield, which is just right before the match, which is good preparation. We've played a couple of matches already, so that's really good. Most of the team are pretty settled. There's a couple of new faces, but I would predict that Turner will go with what he knows and the familiar faces. There might be one change in that, but at the end of the day, it's a settled team. I think it's going to be tight at the beginning, and it's all about taking your chances. We had chances in Helsinki, we didn't take them, and that's what really cost us in the end. So it's all about taking your chances, and if you can go away from home, and I'm not saying win the match, but at least
not lose.
From the point of view,
yeah,
you don't want to lose the match, but we'll get a few chances in the game, but it's all about taking them. And if we can take our chances, I think we could come away with something.
Yeah. Even though we are halfway through the season, of course, that means better fitness, but it also means injuries, and there are a number of key positions at RFS currently out due to injuries. So I guess that evens out the playing field somewhat.
Yeah.
But in any case, I'm very excited. I look forward to seeing you in Riga, and I look forward to the outcome of the matchup. And may the best team win.
Absolutely. Really looking forward to it. Can't wait.